That does seem like a gap for you to have, Troy, to not know much about Seinfeld.
What was it? I'm recording, by the way.
It's a show from the 90s, sitcom.
Yes. No, but I'm trying to think of like why was it that that's fucking weird.
I never particularly liked Seinfeld, but I've watched a lot of it.
I don't think I've ever seen an episode.
Really?
Wait, Mike, you haven't either?
No, it's completely passed me by.
I love you so hard right now.
See, I'm a huge fan of Frasier, and was as a kid. So I feel like I was watching Frasier around the same time that Seinfeld was popping off. Maybe, I don't know.
Those were definitely concurrent.
Yeah.
Were they?
Yeah.
I thought Frasier would predate.
Older?
I think it probably started before Seinfeld, but they both ran
both were in
forever.
reruns by the time me and Alanah would have been watching them, I assume.
But you do understand where Frasier came from, right?
Yes.
Sir.
Yes.
Okay.
And I've also seen Cheers, but was more of a fan of Frasier.
See, I grew up Cheers, Night Court.
They're calling again. See, Mike gets it.
I get it. Mike, this is we're vibing. I get it.
Demonetized.
The exit was that good. It was that close.
Pitch is too good.
That's such a weird thing, too. Like, I feel like Cheers got divorced, and you had to choose between mom or dad, and Frasier was dad, obviously. And then the mom was Baby Newirth had her own show, too. And that didn't do well. But
You can't give
Ted
women
Danson,
shows. Come on. Who's gonna watch?
No
Who's
one
gonna
will
watch a
watch it.
woman?
Who's gonna watch
That's
it?
ridiculous.
I will say this. I think that
True.
What's her name? Julia Louis-Dreyfus is the Dave Grohl of TV in the sense that all of the talent of Seinfeld was like all of the talent of Nirvana. The biggest, or not all the talent, but the biggest talent of Nirvana was Dave Grohl.
I so disagree about Seinfeld being carried by her.
Have you watched Veep?
Yes.
No. I don't think that Seinfeld was carried by her.
You're
I
saying
just
the
think that
talent was transferred to her at the end of Seinfeld.
or just was there present all along,
Right.
and was made manifest in Veep. If you haven't watched Veep, her comedic ability and her dramatic ability is, I understand why she has won so many Emmys.
I think doesn't that just mean that she was the most versatilely talented of the group to be able to go off and do just other things and continue to flourish?
Doesn't that mean? I mean, is that not the inherent definition of
being Dave Grohl?
talented?
Of
Of being Dave
Grohlism?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Has Kurt Cobain done after Nirvana?
Yeah, for real.
You don't hear from him so much.
Oh,
from him
it's
so
really
much.
strange. What happened?
Wasn't the whole thing that it was a show about nothing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
in a way, we're the spiritual successors of Seinfeld.
We are.
It works.
Some
And
have been
what a great
saying, yeah.
setup, too.
the critics
The
say.
thing that I do respect about Seinfeld is that Jerry Seinfeld apparently had there was a philosophy or whatever about the show that they would never hug and that no characters would ever learn anything.
They definitely don't progress one iota. That's the genius of it, is that the pilot and the series finale form this perfect circle. There's definitely no sort of movement or growth.
As a writer, that would drive me nuts. I would be so
That was sitcom
frustrated.
writing, though, right? Back in the day, that's how all those. That's kind of how like Star Trek: Next Generation works, right? Like
I do love that show.
Any of those shows.
What do you mean? What do you mean? How so?
Well, you have to, because you're in syndication, you have to end in the same place as you start. Whereas what Austin's saying is that was a feature of Seinfeld rather than a bug.
Not a
right?
bug?
They lent into it. Whereas I think a lot of shows,
But I
there was
feel
that
like-
weird period where they were starting to go towards the serialized. Like there was that urge in television to tell long form stories. So you get that in kind of DS9 to keep on
and
Star
Buffy.
Trek. Like it starts to creep in.
Yeah.
But back in the day, like every show was meant to be completely watchable out of order.
It was
That the
it was
whole
a
point.
big it was a big deal when shows like that would do two-parters. Because
exactly, yeah.
Because
It
otherwise
was
every
event,
episode
wasn't it?
stands alone. Yep, exactly.
Do we ever? I guess like Batman the Animated Series would do that sometimes, where it was like two-parter, but then
They made a
because there were
goddamn movie out
reruns.
of it.
Well, no, I'm just saying that there's no way that you could guarantee that the next episode would be part two. There were times
because they
when,
would be moved around. I was going to ask. I saw something in the comments like, "Did you play the Joker in the animated series before Hamill did? Is that true?" There was someone said that in the
Me?
comments. Yeah, I was like, that doesn't seem like that would line
person's
up.
drunk.
No, I think what
Fair
they were
enough.
saying was that
Troy would have been like 15 years old.
Troy played
the
Joker
dates
at a
didn't
younger
seem
age
to-
than Hamill was Joker, is
Right.
what I think they were saying.
1990. Yeah, 1990 was when that came out.
Okay. I was going to say, yeah, unless Hamill did it very late and you did it very early, those
No, I
dates
think
did
it's
not
just
align.
it's just that he kind of has that old raspy voice because that's how Hamill sounds. And then Troy, I know you did it in Origins, and I didn't even realize at first. I was like, "What? Is it a different dude? What? Who's that?"
Best compliment ever.
Yeah, I mean, it can't be
The thing
easy
that
to
do you know that Mark Hamill wasn't the first?
I believe
Yeah,
you.
Jack,
On the animated series.
Jack Nicholson.
Well, no, on the animated series.
Heath
Jack
Ledger, I
Nicholson.
think, originated the role. Yeah,
Jack Nicholson wasn't even the first anyway. I just can't remember the name of
No,
the
but
one.
The
From
guy with the
fourth-
tash, right, who wouldn't shave it off, so it's under the white makeup.
Cesar
in the
Romero?
60s. That's the one.
Yeah.
So someone else played it in the animated show.
The first one and was replaced. Little trivia.
So it never aired.
Tim Curry
Really?
No way. I can
for
see that.
Pennywise got him in the door. So I can tell the story now because it's out. There's Kevin Conroy, gracious, inimitable, kind, truly heroic Kevin Conroy.
The Grohl of that scenario.
The Dave Grohl. And here he is telling this story, and Kevin is a consummate storyteller, and in every way he's got this. He's a Broadway theater trained actor, a Juilliard trained actor. He's brilliant, and he's telling the story. It's like someone said, I understand that Tim Curry was originally the original choice for Joker, and Kevin gracefully tells this story. It's like, as in all things, we're iterating upon characters, and it's like King Lear. How do you? It's certain people are going to be right for certain things, and he has this wonderfully eloquent way of kind of talking around why they went with somebody else. And then Bruce Timm goes, "No, he's too scary. He wasn't. It was just too scary." Just like came straight at it, and I was like. What? He was like, yeah, it was too scary. He was like, he terrified us. It was just like, and then you bring in Mark, and Mark was that show was so wonderfully cast. I mean, Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. as Alfred,
Wonderfully everything.
Yeah. It's
Everything.
one of my favorite
Fired
TV
on
shows
all
ever.
cylinders.
that one, and honestly, like X-Men at the same time was just doing shit. There was so many shows that and being able to talk to, when we're doing Young Justice, being able to talk to them about like gargoyles, and how that show went through like 5 different pitches to Eisner before it finally became a thing, and like Gummy Bears was really big when they were pitching that show, and so Eisner was like, "We need another Gummy Bears," and they're like, "Yeah, these are gothic." And he's like, "No, you may make them more Gummy Bears." And so they went around to all these different iterations, and they finally came back to their original pitch.
I
and
did
Eisner
not
was like,
know
"That's the
that.
one."
That's so funny.
I didn't expect you to say gummy bears at any point
Gummy
during
Bears.
any of that.
Gummy Bears was the biggest.
So for those
show,
who have
the
their
biggest cartoon.
play, watch, listen bingo card,
Gummy Bears,
There was a.
bouncing here and there and everywhere. Oh yeah, dude,
I didn't
huge,
even know there
huge,
was,
huge, huge,
there
huge,
was a
huge.
fucking show of that. I have
comes to Gummy
the.
Bear
So
book.
annoyingly.
Oh, beautiful.
This is a
that's-
lovely book, by the way.
That is very nice.
Do you know they were the first
Can I show you guys a
ones
prop? I
to
just got this new
use-
Batman and I haven't showed him off. Let me go grab
Please.
him.
Do it.
is
do
it
it,
more?
do it.
Is it more impressive if I'm playing the forest?
Kind of. That was the first show to use. They started with black paper as opposed to white for animation.
That's true.
Really?
That's what gave it.
I can,
And so,
let me illustrate that. I can.
That's not the cutest
Hell
man
yeah,
you've ever
dude.
seen in your life.
is that the freeze Batman?
Oh,
He's so chunky.
It's kind of like Batman by way of Brad Bird in
that's
love
Dark
him.
Knight, right?
the.
Is it like animated Dark Knight? Is it like a hybrid kind of weird thing? Or?
I don't think it actually exists in anything, but yes, it is. I believe it was called Dark Knight. I'd have to check though. But it's supposed to be an animated series.
That's what Troy's talking about, the black paper and the...
Well, so I was gonna say I got the 4K like Blu-ray edition when it came out last year, not so long ago, and that show still looks beautiful because of the black in the background. Like it just hasn't aged a day. It's crazy. And then I also just recently got all the Lord of the Rings 4K box sets, and I can't believe the way they've enhanced those movies. When you see side by sides, I just don't even understand how they've done it. They were washed out and had these odd colors before that I never noticed. And when looking at the way that they've updated them, like, I genuinely don't know how that tech works. It's absolutely amazing. They just
I think it was
look like they were
Alan
filmed today.
Burnett. They did a at the TCL. Sorry, the TCL at the Mans. They did. I think it was Alan Burnett was there and talking about how they did. I'll make sure that was. I'm not misquoting myself. Yeah, Alan Burnett did this amazing thing where they had started Batman the Animated Series, and in order to keep the staff hired, so they wouldn't have to furlough them, they were like, "What if we just cranked out a movie?" And so they cranked out Mask of the Phantasm.
Was that the origins of that? That film was basically just
keeping them going, and they did it over. I think they did it in 6 months or 3 months, something insane.
It's where the best stuff often comes from, is when you're kind of just messing around, riffing in the corners. Yeah.
So
it was
wait,
never
was
supposed
that
to have theatrical. It was never supposed. It was the first animated thing, the TV to theatrical like that. It was insane.
Was it not also one of those ones that aired as multiple episodes? I don't remember because I watched the show as a kid.
Nope,
it didn't.
Theatrical.
It just came out as theatrical release. No way.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's also so great about that show was that in the era where Saturday morning cartoons were musically generally all done in the box, and you can really hear it, and as amazing as the X-Men animated series is, the music generally does not age well.
What do you mean by done in a box?
How dare you?
I mean, everybody loves,
Yeah.
But done in the box meaning like they're all samples and they're not.
It's all computer. There's no real.
Okay, I see. Ike.
Software
in Stark, but it's generally supposed to sound like it's real. It's one thing to write electronic music. It's another thing to use fake strings. And the X-Men show is, unfortunately, it just sounds like what the best of tech was in the early 90s. In contrast, Batman the Animated Series was a full live orchestra every single episode.
Wow.
They pulled out all the stops, and the cool thing was that it was done by Shirley Walker, who she had conducted and orchestrated the movie score of Danny Elfman's, and so it was kind of like take his theme and then go off and do your own thing. And she already
also had. Go ahead.
Well, she already has the sort of trivia of being the first woman to ever score a major Hollywood studio film, but it's her TV, which was the movie Memoirs of the Invisible Man, but her TV work is considered, like, because of specifically the Batman animated series, and also she scored Mask of the Phantasm and a bunch others. She's one of those, like, iconic, everybody just holds her up as the benchmark of what TV, especially the so-called how would you phrase it, the world of Saturday morning cartoons is not where people look to for their high art amongst the snobby Emmy voters who are looking for their Breaking Bads, and assuming that's where all the best stuff is going to be found. She represents one of those, like, hold on, let me show you just what we can do here.
This only occurred to me really recently, actually, upon watching Detective Pikachu, that you can have content that is for children that doesn't have to be dumbed down for kids. So, I feel like
that's the philosophy of Pixar, isn't it? Like, top to bottom.
Oh, is it?
But that's iterating off of Bugs Bunny. Like, that's Looney Tunes, because they were hitting on two levels. Like, if you go back and watch Bugs Bunny cartoons, and they're like the King Arthur episode or whatever, they're going around, they're listing all the different swap it around, Mike. That's great.
I just froze, so I was fixing. It's fine. Carry on. Looney Tunes. Too late.
There's two things I want to comment on. First of all, the Bugs Bunny thing is, like, they would do stuff like sirloin of beef, cirrhosis of liver. That's not for kids. That's for the adults watching. Because by and large, those were being presented before a movie was being played at a theater. That's when you watched your cartoons. There was no Saturday morning cartoons up until late 50s, early 60s, when all of a sudden it was Howdy Doody time, and that kind of ushered in this new era of television. But I think what made the leap from Saturday morning cartoons were X, and that was a genre. But that's not what Batman the Animated Series was. That was after school. And that's a huge distinction.
Oh,
And
you're
matter of fact,
right.
not just
You're
yeah,
right.
not
That-
just after school, but like right before adult TV came on. So it was this bridging the gap, because you had like the Disney hour, which was like started off with Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers and then DuckTales. And so you would like from like 3 to 4:30 was like this rad, defining, epic era of television. And the weirdest one was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles started on Sunday night. That's when it first aired. It wasn't an afternoon or a Saturday morning cartoon. It was prime time Sunday night. It came on like after Married with Children. And it was this fledgling network, that ended up becoming...
I wonder if they
there
did
were
that
two-
because it was an existing property that was already popular before it became a TV show.
No, it wasn't, though. It was a black and white graphic novel that,
Yeah,
that
it was-
only...
But didn't
It's
they
not like
already have the
5,000
toys
calls or
before they
something,
had
yeah.
the TV show?
No.
Oh.
It all of a sudden they were like, "Fuck it, we're gonna do this." Like, I think it was a mini series, and I wish I could talk to.
I think they sold it in simultaneously. I think the toys and the show was like.
Well,
a
that's why they made the show
simultaneous
was
pitch
to sell the toys. Yeah.
Always same thing with GI Joe. Same thing with
My Little Pony. I think it's pretty
My
much all
Little
of
Pony.
them.
He-Man is all of those
Transformers
stories
is
are like,
art. Let's leave
Transformers is
out
art.
of
Yeah,
it.
we concur. Transformers is art.
It's can we just
100%
comment on the fact that
commercial.
Alana's had the word poo above her head now for like 20 minutes.
And Ho.
And ho. Poo and ho.
Yeah.
I just
Because I'd
wanted
love
to-
to
I
talk
just
about
wanted
Cyberpunk, but here we go.
I haven't.
What I was actually going to say with that point was
Yeah.
Paddington, I feel like, is such a good example of a movie that is, I think, pretty much unironically perfect. Paddington 1 and 2 are two of the best films I have ever seen.
Really?
Yes.
I thought people were joking when they said that.
Nope.
Really?
No, they're beautiful. They're beautiful.
Absolutely
I think they're
amazing.
family films. I think that's the difference between like the Looney Tunes, because the Looney Tunes model feels like nowadays that's kind of the DreamWorks thing, right? Where you're putting in the jokes for the mom and dad, but also you're doing the kids stuff. Paddington, I think, is and I think this is true of like the Lego Movie as well, and a few other films. Like they're movies where the kid and the adult are watching the same movie, but they're enjoying it like and this is I guess true of Pixar as well. But like it's not when you're watching Paddington, there's no jokes in Paddington that are like, hey, you know about these adult things. It's
Like
you
double
you're swept
entendre
along
kind
for the
of stuff.
story. Yeah, it's family. It's you're both watching and enjoying the same film, but it's not speaking down to the kids so that like an adult actually enjoys it. Paddington's lovely.
Which is my issue with Detective Pikachu,
Lovely.
is they would tell you what had happened, show you a flashback of it happening, and then zoom in on something to try to sell the plot to kids. And as someone who was very excited to see that movie, I had this thought around that movie coming out of how unnecessary that was.
Yeah.
And that if the kids don't care about the plot, they don't need to. They care about the giant Pokemon. You don't have
Thank
to
you.
try and sell it to kids. You can have a smart plot that doesn't have to be like, see, kid, make sure you get this point. They just don't need it.
But games do the same thing. So where does that come from? Like, how many-
Mistrust. It's mistrust of the audience. It's and
It's
ultimately
data.
mistrust of yourself.
Well,
Okay, wait a
games
minute.
games do it
those are
because
two conflicting
players
things,
actually
though.
miss it. Like the games do the like here you have to look at this because
if
players
you've
have
seen
complete
a
control of the camera.
if you've ever been playing a game and you've gone to a room and you're like, oh, I have to go over there, and then a camera has come in slow-mo and pointed out the place you're going, that is because
People
a
missed
bunch
it.
of game designers had to watch 50% of the audience not see that door. It's great that you did, but like there is nothing more nerve-wracking than being in the room for playtest and seeing someone run around in circles not being able to find the door. And yeah, there are subtle, brilliant, artistic ways of doing that. If you've got time, you can do all of the clever stuff with lighting.
That's my question, though. So is it an
But
issue
that takes time
of-
and money. That takes effort, and it's often easier just to put in the camera case of just going. Whoop.
But that's okay.
it
So, but
sucks.
that's you owning the fact that it is a cheat.
Oh, every I mean, if very few game designers and game developers in general get to work with infinite resources of time and money. Arguably none do, but obviously some people have higher ceilings than others. So yeah, no, I remember visiting.
Is that a segue to Cyberpunk?
It
No,
could
well,
be.
we
That's
can,
what I
we
was
can
thinking.
get there. We can get there, but like I think this is all stuff that's out there. So visiting Naughty Dog and kind of getting the tour of how they do their stuff. And Naughty Dog, they
Probably not
make
heard
some
of them, don't worry about
games.
it, yeah.
They don't
Everybody
come
knows
up on the
about
show very
Uncharted.
often.
You don't have to
Animal
flex.
Shelter.
But their playtesting methodology is phenomenal. Like their playtesting process, the way that's all set up. I can't remember which bits of it are public and which aren't, so I'll keep my mouth shut. But like looking at them and seeing the amount of energy and effort they get to go in, and also how early in the process it happens, so they can actually adjust things and kind of improve stuff. You know, on the indie side, we don't necessarily have all of those resources. We still do playtesting; it's very important. But you're often, you're up against it. If you've got a couple of months and you know no one's understanding how to get to the end of level 3, you've got to make the choice that's going to get them there. You know, and it's not always the glamorous perfect case because
There's this puzzle.
Which is a better move, though. Which is a better move. Let's say you're doing 10 levels, and you can either that's your goal to do 10 levels. Is it better to go, let's just cheat and get from level 3 to level 4? Or is it go, we actually need to reduce and no one will ever know that there were supposed to be 10 levels.
Oh, yeah,
now
I've done
there's
both.
7.
I've done both. I've removed
That seems
stuff
to be the
and-
better thing. It's like, let's make it better design. Because I can always cheat. But like, here's the, like, as a parent right now.
I think it's a case-by-case basis, right? Like,
It
I just
really
wanted to
is.
mention,
It really
there's
is.
this puzzle in the first Darksiders that when I visited Gunfire, I was making a mini doc about a game they were working on. And there's this one puzzle, only one if I remember correctly. They often have like pans around the environment, but that would draw you into what you were looking at because they tried having like tracks on the ground that would make your eye line go to it. They tried making it shiny, putting this little like white thing on it that's still on it, and people would still miss it. They were like, we had to just like pull people into it because otherwise, no matter what else we did in the level that we would think would draw your eye line there, people just didn't see it.
Okay, but like perfect example. We're going on a walk the other day with Traveler, and he is at this point right now where he's learned I need help, which is great. I want him to ask for our help, but what he's doing is like
Thought you meant he learned that you need help.
He does learn that I need help. He like dropped a car.
Listens
I
to
was
the
like,
show, yeah.
said pick up the car, and he starts losing it, and what we would call nuclear, which means he's just crying. And I was like, pick it up, dude.
It's like
And we
Homelander's
stood-
kid.
Yeah, we stood there for 5 minutes, and he's like, I need help. I was like, buddy, we're right here, but you can pick that up. I want you to bend down. I want you to pick that up. And any other parent I know, and we're outside, and it's just like, but I can't. And he's like losing his shit. And finally, he bent down and he picked it up, and he was totally fine. The cheat would be, fuck it, let's just pick up the car, give it to him, and move on. But it's more important for me to spend those 5 minutes as uncomfortable as it is. And people passing by looking at us like side-eyeing us like we're bad parents. It's like, no, we're being great
occurred
parents.
to me
We're
that you would have to
teaching him.
teach a kid that lesson.
Yeah.
Of course you do, though.
Everything. That's why everything
Everything,
is
like-
programming.
So
There's,
I
there's
think-
so much stuff that's inherent,
Yeah.
like eating and
But-
shit.
but
But honestly,
that's-
picking up food and putting it in your mouth is a learned thing. It's not inherent.
I think the takeaway from this is that Troy regards gamers as screaming children.
Kind of.
Well, it's worse. They're screaming adults who've paid you. Like, and that's the. I think it's really like it's valid. Like what you're saying about obviously that's the right way to raise a kid. But like, if someone's giving me their time, if someone's like they've given me some money, they're playing for an hour after work, and they just want to get to the fun. It's tricky. Where I think we're making great strides as a medium right now is with the accessibility conversations, because I think what that does, and we're hitting all the big normal topics of the show right now. What that does is, I think people, when they hear about accessibility, you jump to the assumption that accessibility isn't for me. It's for people with disabilities. It's for people who have more specific kind of barriers to entry. But no, we all have like areas where we're better and worse at playing, or different, just in terms of like not understanding
Aim
or
assist.
not picking up stuff. Aim assist
assist
exactly.
is accessibility.
Every game you're playing is actually making a lot of affordances for you as a player anyway, right? Because in real life, none of us would walk into a room and take out 4 bad guys. Troy might. I think Troy's up to it. He's got the
The
I
beanie.
get it.
Look at this beanie, guys.
I
Come
will
on.
forever
Not fucking
remember.
around.
It's a true story. The first time I met Chad, who's the director of the John Wick movies, one of the producers was asking him like how he sets up a fight scene and schedules. He's like, I'll tell you right now, you work out who the biggest dangers are and you work your way. And he points at me and he says, and I'd take him out last because he'd be the least trouble. And I was like, Chad, we're gonna get on very well. True story. But what I'm saying is, all games give you affordances. Aim assist is a brilliant example of this. If you've shot a gun in a console game, the computer was helping you.
We're gonna move past it. We're gonna move past it. We're gonna move past it.
I heard it too.
We're gonna move past it, guys.
I don't.
Please.
What did I say?
No,
said
because
if
I don't
you
want
shot
anybody
a
to just
gay.
roll past. God damn it, Alanah. Going back to the very beginning of this, what was the phrase? You're being very generous. Was the mic
being
loop,
very
and now it's gonna be
Please be
you shot
generous
a
to me.
gay.
Is that what I said? Because I cut myself off.
You're a
She said
bad
it by
father of the
accident, obviously you were trying to
'90s.
say games, but
Jesus Christ.
Words are hard.
unfortunate.
I'm going to finish the point though. I'm going to carry
Yes.
on. Like,
Please.
it's because it is like when you shoot. No, it's bad. It's bad. Basically, if you've played a game, you've been helped, and to some extent or another, if you're playing Call of Duty, you are getting aim assist. Even if you switched it off, there is some level of helping that's always going on. So therefore, what's great about the accessibility conversation is if we normalize the idea of being able to change those settings and tailor experiences, I don't have to hit such a wide target. If I know that Troy hates the camera that tells him where to go, I can make it an option to toggle that off. And that's going to make Troy's time better with the game. It's going to make my life easier because Troy's not going to be complaining about it.
But removing it is bad for people with ADHD, for example, among other
Exactly.
things.
So often you're trying to hit the big target of like, I have a game, I have 4 difficulty levels, I need to make sure that 80% of our audience gets to the end on the difficulty level they are, if they want to, and I need to cater to that. The more we can kind of make that granular, the better, and the more we can give you the experience you want.
I am going
Yes,
to
Troy.
bring up what everybody always punts to.
Sure.
Inside. Okay.
Great game.
Since we all can agree that's a perfect game.
It's a great game.
Oh, I love
I
it
do
so
too.
much. I think it's a perfect game.
I
me
have
too.
the real sex doll collector's edition thing on my
Oh,
coffee
that's
table, and I left it there while I got my apartment cleaned recently, and I was like, what do you think she thinks of me? What do you think she thinks this fucking blob thing is? But I was like, I'm gonna leave it out.
Deep
Does
admiration.
she clean it? That's the question.
You're only allowed to clean it with water. They're very specific about how you clean your real sex toys, which is apparently what I have.
Mogwai. Yeah.
I didn't clean the thing. I
So
used
what
it.
were you
but
gonna,
I
what was your what was your insight?
Turned it inside.
My thing is, oh my god, interesting article. I feel like what they did
Stay
was
focused.
long ago was progress the medium in such a way that said we're going back to the way the games were. They're a true retro game in the sense that was either you go out and you buy the guide, or you just sit here and grind and figure it out, as opposed to tutorialization and a HUD and all of
Which
these
way do you
cheats.
move? Which? How many dimensions can you move in and inside?
Absolutely, totally.
And
get it.
which direction do you move in?
I think,
always
Troy,
want-
I think you are
It's always going left or right. but I
not
get
giving Inside enough credit. In that, I agree, it doesn't tell you anything, and I love that. That's why I love The Witness. It's like, here's a puzzle, bitch. Figure them all out from here. I love
Figure
that
it out.
about it.
See,
That
I would
game
say
is antagonistic. That game
It is.
like
It's like, I'm not
actively
going to tell you how to
annoyed
do
by
this.
bothering.
You better remember, if
mean,
you put it
so-
down for 6 months, son, I don't.
There's a lot of games that do that. Even The Room
But
did that.
Inside's
to where it's like,
use of lighting is very
Sure.
and sound, both very, very, very
Sure.
specific to lead you in the right direction. It's just not text on a screen, but it's still
Right.
leading you in the right way at all times.
That's designed. That's what I'm saying. It's not. It's waiting for the kid to, and not putting a clock on it, with the exception of there's certain times like the dogs come after you or whatever. But it's a very patient game, and it's a very. But I can't help. I would love to sit down and do a deep dive with them
I love that game.
as to how much they scoped. You know what I mean?
I would. My gut has always been, given how long they worked on it, that it was about polish more than about scope. That every single pixel is like perfectly, carefully chosen and very deliberate. Every single puzzle, every challenge is like really carefully sort of manicured to perfection, so that it feels like we are doing what Alanah's describing, which I think is totally accurate. The game gives you exactly what you need and nothing more. But it's also not opaque ever. To me,
I never got stuck on that game, right? Like, it's not, and I think that's the thing. And I'm not belittling it. I'm not being dismissive of it because I don't think it. I think it's an excellent game, but they are making choices about affordance as well. They are limiting the actions that it would occur to you to take. And because of that, that does mean they can funnel you towards stuff much more easily. And then do it beautifully with a lot of polish. But there is, even they're making choices. There is a reason they consciously did not make that game a 3D game.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm. I was like, I'm
making.
Pretty sure I put it in my list of my top 5 last generation games, and I did. Thank God. I think I put it as number 4. I did.
Troy, does that mean that you think that the game subtly sort of cheating to help the player is bad design because the design needs
I don't think
player
it's bad
help?
design. That's a reductionist view. I don't believe it's bad design. What I do believe is it is the same thing as me as a parent making a choice to pick up the car for Traveler. I can either perfect example. I'm in here doing a session, and there's one of the same, almost literally the same instance. Traveler is wanting to pick up another car, or he's wanting to stand up and he feels like he can't do it. Pam is in other part of the house, but Traveler is having this moment. And I walked in there, I was like, just to let you know, I'm working and this is not a teaching moment. So there's another reason why the exact same response is not the appropriate one. So I get it. Sometimes you're like, yes, if we could do that, we absolutely would. But like what Mike's saying is like, we have publisher demands, we have limited budget, we have limited time, we have limited staff. If other things were in play, then we would absolutely sit time and iterate and polish, manicure. But we can't do that on this level because we've got to get past level 3. So I'm not saying
yours
that's
is definitely
bad
the perfect version. Like I would if in a perfect world I would aim to do it because I actually think you're being potentially a little generous in that I think the designer who brilliantly places a light to guide you to the exit is still picking up the toy for the kid. Like they're still directing you, they're just doing it with much more subtlety and elegance than me bluntly making camera. It's the same thing. Leaving the kids pick up the toy themselves would be to do none of these things. So right. To me it's a much better, more finessed, more polished approach to the same problem.
Where I think it's bad design, when I think it's bad design is when I'm sitting in the booth, not on the stage. I mean, sometimes it's been on the stage, and there have been multiple examples of that. But in the booth, and basically we're going full diegetic fixed design and go, well, maybe you should pick up that gun.
Let's try the door.
Troy, what you're talking about is my number 1 beef with Alan Wake. This ongoing beef I have with Alan Wake, where you enter a level, Alan goes, oh, I hate my wife. I guess I better get to that ladder. And then the camera pulls you into the ladder. And then it again reminds you have to get there. Alan said you have to get there. This is where you have to go. And I'm like, fuck off, Alan.
There was even stuff in BioShock where I didn't do that. I was like, I wonder what I should do. And Booker would literally say, what are we going to do? And then bang! I mean, loud, like rip your headphones off. Go to the next town. It's just like, there's no agency that you have in that. And if something appears on screen, man, it better be aesthetic, it better be diegetic, it better be anything other than, I don't want to see I don't like a HUD. If it's practical, like if I'm playing Call of Duty or something, I want to see what my weapon loadout is and what all of that shit, great. But if I could operate without a map, awesome. I don't want to see exactly. Pathless, perfect example. I was talking to Gary Wood about that yesterday, and he was talking, like, man, this is the kind of game that I really want to play, where it's just like,
oh, nice. I saw that he was playing it on iOS too.
Yeah, and everyone was like, don't play it on iOS. It's like, I can't wait. I've got it on PC and I've got it on iOS. The thing that I love about a game like that, where it is, you look at Cyberpunk and it's like, I love big worlds. 200 hours of gameplay. I'm
Yeah,
like,
but Cyberpunk in the
bitch.
first 20 minutes, the sheer amount of tutorial of like you got to learn this and this and this and this and this, I was so quickly like, holy shit, this is
It
why
has
I
a lot
got
of systems.
a lot of systems. And
But
they're
I
very-
will
if I wanna play
say,
it.
one thing that I'm loving about Cyberpunk, and I'm trying not to talk about the game editorially. I said, like, I'm not going to give many opinions on this game, but
why?
because I worked on it, technically. Like, I'm in the credits. It's like I'm trying to just
I
avoid
talk
it.
about the stuff that I worked on all the time.
Yeah, but
Me,
you're
Troy,
not
and
like a
Austin's
woman who
games are
came
all
from games
amazing,
journalism.
Alanah. That's fair.
People get pretty upset, so I was just like, I'm just going to not do it. But I've
smart.
learned the city quite well. There are street names that are visible everywhere. There are districts that are really defined. And I think one of the cooler things about Night City, which is still my favorite part of the game, is being able to, in theory, be like, oh, I was in this area. You know, the one where the shopping center has like the several ramps that lead into it and it goes higher. And people be like, oh, yeah. You can talk about it like it's a real city. It's and again, I love street names, and I love that about like DayZ, like games like that where you can actually try and figure out where you are based on like, well, here's this landmark and here's this thing, and you don't need to rely on the map
GTA
that
was
much.
rudimentary like that too. Like you could do
sure.
that in GTA.
Easier because it's based on an actual real city. Like, so Night City is
Ish.
LA inspired, but well, I can be like,
That's
I'm at the
wild thing
airport.
about what-
Yeah.
The wild thing about Watch Dogs Legion is if you've lived in London, you know exactly where everything is. It's weird.
See, you say
we did a
that.
test.
strange.
We did a test where we did Assassin's Creed Unity.
say, oh my god.
Great music in Unity. Great.
Brutal.
We're just talking about the pathless, Austin. You get one game per show.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it.
What? Troy has broken
Black
that rule
flag.
many times.
Yeah, you're right. Yes. We mentioned Origins. We've been through all of them, really.
Yeah.
Naughty
Come
Dog.
on. Granted, I don't know which is harder to talk about games that Austin's done or the games that I've done.
You cover a lot of them, let's be real.
You've got me thoroughly beaten there.
But we paired that up with Watch Dogs Legion because it was both, you know,
Syndicate, for the record.
Yeah, I'm saying it. Syndicate and Legion are both, you know, supposed to be 1-to-1. You could also do Getaway too, which was the first one to do that.
Midtown Madness?
Well, Getaway is properly 1-to-1 to a fault. Like the
Is it
Getaway
really?
is actual. Yeah, so like what?
And they were
obviously, like,
PS3, right? They were early PS3.
PS2.
PS2. Holy shit.
PS2 on Getaway. Getaway was like actually like perfect to London, but therefore was not necessarily a great game space. Watch Dogs Legion is definitely like compressed. Like there's definitely streets missing. Annoyingly, the street I lived on is missing, which is really annoying.
I
had
did
the
a
same
stream with
experience.
Rahul and had him try to show me around the city, and he was fucking useless. Like, he did not
Really?
know. Yeah.
It's pretty
To be
funny.
fair,
I
a
had two
lot of
Londoners
Londoners
on the
go
phone
by
with me
tube.
too.
If you're a Londoner who travels by tube everywhere, like
That's
it
what
took
he
me a
said.
long
He was
time.
like, we don't walk around London. So,
Yeah, see, that was the
Yeah.
difference
That's the
between
issue.
me. Like, I took Victoria Atkin up on the top of basically Westminster Abbey. And I was like, okay, so if we're going here, we need to go left. She's like, no, I think we need to go right. It's like, the river's right in front of us. We need to go left. Left is going east. She goes, no, I think right. It's like, what are you talking about? It's like,
Don't
go
let her
left.
accent fool you, man. She's lived in
she's
LA
like,
a
oh,
long
oh,
time.
right.
I think we need to go
And
to the
it is the
east.
difference between like someone who's a Londoner or whatever. They're like, we're never above ground.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, play that game with a
It was a
happy.
good.
Inside
It
or
was
underground?
it was a good 2 or 3 years I'd been living there before I, for whatever reason, decided to just walk from one place to another. And you're walking like all of these places that in your brain you've mentally mapped as like little hub worlds that they're just next to each other, and it's that weird kind of thought process. So
It
that's-
is funny.
yeah,
I had
even
I had that exact experience living in Manhattan, where different subway stop destinations where you're like, oh, if I'm going to the New York's public library versus Central Park, they're like 5 minutes walk from each other, but they're different
the park.
stops. Well, no, but that's the thing. And I mean, the park is an unreasonable example because it's like a third of the island, but
Right.
but there's
Ridiculous.
like there's 20 different stops that hit it, but nonetheless, that point of experiencing the walk from one destination above ground to another that you associate as being different stops, because your mind just categorizes as like, I may as well be going light speed between stations. They're like thousands of light years apart from each other. And
they're
it's-
discreet, right? They're completely
Central
separate
Park-
from each other.
Central Park goes from 59th to
It's ridiculous.
81st.
way above
We
81st,
walked
like
it
100th.
once, and it was the stupidest decision we ever made was to walk the length of Central Park.
No,
like,
you don't ever
See,
do
I've
that.
done that a couple of
Yeah.
times because I
What?
like
No,
to
it's
torture
amazing.
myself. Yeah, it's beautiful.
No, it's
Oh,
incredible.
it's awesome,
That's-
but like we thought it was going to be like the size of like St James's
park.
Park in the UK
Yeah,
or whatever.
no.
We thought it was going to be
No.
a park.
No,
It's like,
St.
this
James
is a
Park.
city.
St. James Park is not even like I did one of my favorite runs that I've ever done in London. I come out of the Royal Horse Guards Hotel, walk through the Royal Horse Guards stable, and do the run from St. James Park, which is a beautiful park that backs up into Buckingham Palace. And then I came around, and there was this one song that I had on my playlist, and as it's like the whole
God
world.
save the
moving
Queen, her fascist regime, as you went past.
Yeah, it's
Buckingham
absolutely
Palace, right?
exactly
Yeah.
what it was. It's a I can't play for you guys because we'll get fucking shut down.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Actually, I don't
but
care.
it's-
You can if you like.
All right.
That already happened because me and Alanah did such a good job.
Yeah,
of
it's
singing
true.
it
Pitch
earlier.
perfect.
It's already.
Yeah.
Anybody should check it out. It's indie artist Mondo Cosmo, Cozmo, and the song is called Shine. And it's just this great, just feel good song. And as I'm coming out of St. James Park, the Royal Horse Guards are right across from me, which is the Royal Stables. And it's the changing. If you've ever been to London, you've seen the changing of the guard. That's one thing. That's what everybody goes. But what you really want to see is the changing of the horse guard, because they parade these like 20, incredible, huge horses. And they're doing the changing of the guard. And these guys are coming down and they're just clopping, parading down the street. And as I'm coming around, the song just like crescendos. And then just, I get chills thinking about it right now. One of the guys just looks down at me and just goes, and I went, and I just burst, and I was just
And then you
running, and
led
then
the parade, right? You
and I led the parade, and the Queen was like, "Ew, look at him!" And I like took a left around, and then I came around Trafalgar Square, and there was doves everywhere. I was like, "I'm in a John Woo movie." It was awesome. It's one of my favorite moments in London ever.
Well,
we are like all over the.
I gotta say,
I know. I'm like, how the fuck am I going to title this one? I know I said that a lot, but this
Cyber-
one
it's
is
Like, I've got an idea
especially.
for a theme this episode. It's like, no.
you're
Cyberpunk and Batman.
Yeah, I did want to say I did actually to make sure. So because it seems so eclectic, I wanted to Google the name of this beautiful toy that I have shown because I love him.
The sex toy?
Yes,
Oh, sorry.
the
I
inside sex toy. It's Batman: The Adventures Continue Super Armor Batman action figure, and it is, we're correct, based on the animated series, but also the Dark Knight, which I think is really cool.
Well done.
I love
Michael.
it.
They did that episode, didn't they? They did an episode of animated series where they did the Dark Knight in the animated series style, right? That was I remember
Yes.
seeing that.
Did they?
Or was it part of
That
like?
is not
or,
based
no,
on
or-
that, though, I don't think.
No.
I've got this weird memory of like a Batman animated version of Dark Knight, and I don't know if it was like part of an anthology.
Well, there's a version where he's
or-
beefier, like that I can distinctly remember. But
No, I mean literally
also a lot
like
of
with,
fucking
with
episodes.
the
No,
with
he
the
got
cyborg
thinner.
guys and the tank. Oh, yeah, I
Wait, are you
remember
talking
the
about
whole-
Batman Beyond?
No, I'm
Batman.
thinking of like I'm literally thinking of like of Bruce Timm doing. I'm gonna have to look this up. I've seen this. I have memories of the tank scene with all the what they call the bad guy, the cyborg guys from Dark Knight. Dark Knight Returns.
Dark
So
Knight
annoying
Returns.
me. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look it up.
Okay, well, I'm going to intro the
Carry
show.
on, I see
Hi,
what- I
everyone.
see
Welcome
what-
to Play Watch Listen. I'm Alanah, I'm a video
shit.
game writer. That's Austin. He's a video game composer. That's Troy. He's a video game actor, and that's Mike Bithell. He is a video game
Mike
director.
Bithell's there. Austin is. God damn it. Fucking
Yeah, it's good
Jesus.
content. Make sure you got to get it right, Troy. You're not even getting it right when you're
Alanah,
getting it wrong.
Austin, Mike, me.
Wait, you're on the bottom?
I'm on the top. I'm right next to you.
Okay, that's what I
girl.
thought. I didn't think it ever puts anyone on the bottom of their own screen, right? You're always at the
Yeah.
top of your own screen.
What
There is an episode called Legends of the Dark Knight, which is an anthology episode of the Batman
There you go.
animated show where they did that scene from Dark Knight. That's
There
where
you
that
go.
comes from.
Legends of the Dark Knight. So I really did want to talk about Cyberpunk, but we're really running out of time.
yeah, and to answer your question, which I realized I never did, I didn't want to play it on my PC gaming rig that I have here in the studio because I wanted to play it at night, so Anhil and I could kind of tag team. But I still have not been able to get a hold of a PS5, so I was like, fuck it, I'm just getting it on PS4. Let's just embrace the bug mania. And
Look at this face.
it's definitely everything everyone's complaining about. That is for
Really?
sure.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
IGN. Giving
That's
it a
not
4.
question. It's more state of mind. Okay,
From
then
what
they
I
get
could
a
tell,
4.
They
For
give
the
it a
console
4.
version, yeah.
for that because they said, and I think Alanah, you posted this. I think your caption was "Yikes."
I said "Holy shit" because
shit,
they
sorry.
rarely do that.
Because it felt to me a bit of a petulant score to go. You did bad because it didn't play well in this. Is a console is a game responsible for the console's faults?
Oh, we should have started with this an hour ago.
You ever reach a point in the podcast where you're like, I'm going to be reading a transcription of the next 3 sentences I say at some point on the website?
So again, Troy, this isn't a score for Cyberpunk. It's a score for consumers, which is why their note says, please don't play Cyberpunk 2077 on a base Xbox One or PS4. They're saying bad to let players know it is bad on this hardware. And I looked up, I have this video from 2-3 years ago where I was sure that I said it, and it was interesting to find it where I go, there's no way that this is going to run on current gen hardware. There's just absolutely no way. And I guess it doesn't very well. But the main point even surrounding all of that, and I say this as someone who's playing on PC with a 3080 and is having an incredible experience. Like, I find the game to be like consistently breathtaking. I'm like, holy shit, this is beautiful. Very different to what console players are having. If they sold the game on those platforms, made it available for purchase on those platforms, and it doesn't function on those platforms, it is their fault.
Yeah,
that is something that they have to take accountability for.
I'm completely inclined to agree. If I were to bend over backwards to make the greatest surround sound album of all time, and then release it, on something that can play back on a normal stereo channel CD player, but having sold it on its surround sound, but everybody's hardware is playing it back and just algorithmically squashing it down to stereo, that's on me as the producer. Like, that's definitely not faulting them for having the wrong equipment.
But does that not mean that what has to happen is, as they're deving, I don't know if like the dev kits for a PS4 are going to operate differently, so you can't really one-to-one compare. But as your QA people are going through and go, I've got a bug, that means that they would essentially have to be the most vile, Machiavellian level to go, we're just going to flat out steal people's money. Or is it
I don't think that was their intent.
I don't think it's their intent. I can't imagine. So either they didn't know, they were told that it would work, and then it didn't, or it was a mitigating your loss, going,
it's
18% of people are going to have.
I think what happened here is such an interesting example of the conversation surrounding like consoles hold games back. That CDPR didn't let that happen. That basically what they've done is release something that on a high-end PC, people can't even get 3080s. Like, I know that what I'm playing is not the standard.
Right.
This game is beautiful and functions very well. I have had crashes, but it was to do with the GOG overlay. As soon as I turned that off, they stopped weirdly.
What is that?
Oh, that's CDPR's like own storefront. Effectively, it's their Steam.
They probably would have tested it with GOG, I would have thought.
You'd think. It's weird. The minute I turned it off, it stopped happening. Really strange. That's why, and I know a lot of people had that problem. It's odd. But that they made a game that, in theory, as time goes on, people will continue to have a better experience with it, which is not the way you usually release a game. Instead
that's
of
Crisis level, that's Crisis.
I was going to bring up Crisis.
It is
also.
like Crisis.
I remember that story.
Instead of like taking bits out, so that the Xbox One and PS4 players have a good game, but then everyone else, for a longer amount of time, also has to have a lesser experience. And I'm not saying I agree with this. I think that what they've done here is bad when so many of the pre-orders are on these old consoles. But it is a very interesting thing to have happened. It's not that they neglected dev on those consoles. It's not that they didn't try, and I'm certain that they didn't want it to come out this way. It was not, well, fuck it, let's just steal that money. These idiots are just going to buy a new version anyway. It's just a game too big, game can't run shit. My
guess, if I had to wager, and I really have no idea, this is pure speculation, but my guess is that they underestimated the shortage of next-gen consoles that would have greeted their release. Because I think...
Sure.
But it's not out for next gen yet anyway, because the version that you currently are playing on next gen consoles is just the old version. They haven't had the updated version on those consoles yet.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Are the bugs mitigated when playing via emulation on the next gen consoles? Are people having a better time with it on PS5?
Look, I feel like I've probably seen more screenshots of this game than most people, because anyone who's finding me in the game is then sending me their version of it. So like hundreds of them all day, every day, constantly seeing different versions of this game. And as far as I can tell from what people are telling me, it is running better on the Series X than it is on previous. And this is super anecdotal, of course. This is just based on these people who are sending me those screenshots. But I don't entirely. It is still the same game. It's just that, you know, the frame rate is not as bad, and I haven't had really any visible frame rate drops playing on PC. So it's better, but it's still not.
You wouldn't expect it to run. Yeah, you wouldn't expect it to run any differently, so the bugs would still be present.
Bugs are still present.
It's interesting. I mean, the reality is, and I feel like it always feels like you're an apologist when you say this, but it's true, is you've never played a video game that didn't have bugs in it. Like, every video game ships with bugs, inevitably. And the challenge to developing a game is always to decide on the prioritization of, okay, which bugs are we okay with? Which bugs do we have to fix? You know, and what level of that we're going to do, because if you always presume, it's the reason that like there's never going to be a game that's released that you can't find like a YouTube video of someone getting a weird, stupid bug, because if it's a 1 in 10,000 bug, then
similar problem with reviews. That's really interesting. Bugs are so subjective that I remember when Microsoft Flight Simulator came out and was getting 10s, I was like, how? This game crashes on me all the time. How are you giving it 10s? And so I reached out to someone and was like, I don't understand. Like, this game crashes. And they're like, I never had a crash. And you're like, oh, well, for you, it is a 10 out of 10. For me, it's got to be like 7. Like, it just is so subjective even in reviews.
It's a sliding scale. And when you're a developer, you are making that choice. And all this reads like to me, and again, like Austin, like I have no knowledge, so it could be absolute nonsense. But my presumption is you usually as a dev team know the bugs. There's, especially when you've got a big QA process, which I'm sure they have. They would have known that these bugs were there, but they'll have made the decision that they didn't think they would massively impact people's experience. And clearly the audience disagrees with them on that. But
I would say that's the case for me. There are bugs there, and none of them matter enough that anything.
And that's the
it's the Fight Club rule, right? It's the thing that Edward Norton talks about, is like, if the cost of a recall is more than the payout, we don't do one. I was like, it makes so much sense.
And I feel like in these situations. In these situations, the QA team always gets the blame. Like, why? How did you not find these bugs? The QA team found these bugs, probably.
Yeah, it's time. I wish they had delayed it.
It's a production management issue.
Delayed.
It's the developers. The QA guys will have known about this and they'll have found it. They'll have done their jobs. The developers, I'm sure if they had unlimited time and resources, they would have been able to fix them, of course. Ultimately, this comes down to someone, and probably several someones given the scale of the production, looking at a spreadsheet and going, we can ship with those. That's okay. Or we can get those later. You know, I'm not putting a moral judgment on that, but that will have been, having been in that situation several times, like that will have been the process. And God knows my games have bugs in them that hopefully no one will ever find.
Well, and you have to factor also a game of this scale, like, as your game gets bigger, there's like a very, very exponential rise in how bugs can happen. Like, a very system-driven open world game is such a vastly different level of complexity of the way things interact. I know that in my case, even on a game like Pathless, which is so much smaller by comparison, but structurally kind of similar in that it's also an open world game. As a member of the team, you know, I can submit bug reports as I find them in the game. And every now and again, I'll find a graphics bug and I think, you know, maybe I have a novel one, and if I don't submit it, no one else will have found it. So I'll submit those, even though normally what I'm looking for is just audio and music bugs. And it's one of the first things I ask you, which people don't realize when, especially if just blaming a QA department, is that the one of the things your responsibility is in submitting a bug report, at least in my experience, is to list out the reproduction steps so that someone else can recreate the repro of a bug. And sometimes that's freaking hard, especially on an open world game, because you're like, it could have been that I had this inventory item, and then I went into this area, and then I did this one, and this super esoteric series of events made that car load, without textures.
You might not
on
even
it.
Or
know.
you'll make an assumption about the wrong one. Like you'll invent a rain dance, which I don't know. Maybe that's a dated way of phrasing it. But like you'll invent this. You'll be like, no, I'm pretty sure it's when I'm wearing this particular shoe the game breaks, and it'll become something completely different to that. But you'll build these little narratives or these
QA
these cargo
so
cult kind of
complicated.
assumptions.
Just
It's
ridiculous.
really hard.
unsung
And
heroes.
What else? One
Dude,
thing I've
every time I
noticed
go to
here-
a studio, I always make sure I swing by QA.
And so many of them aren't full time in so many studios as well. These are people who just like work tirelessly to repeat things over and over again as a contractor, and then get
They play
laid
a
off
broken
when it
game
ships.
so we
Like
can
it's
just
just
do.
Yeah.
brutal.
It's also
It
it's also a
sucks.
tortured existence when you think that QA is overwhelmingly populated by people where that's their entry into the game industry, where
Yeah.
they're like, here's how I'm going to break in, and it's like, let's make you hate games.
Yeah.
Because it just puts you through
That's the
worst.
first step to making them, Austin. That's the first step.
Well, I know that they're like
The,
there are QA departments where, and I think this was EA. It would have been in the 90s, but they had this leaderboard for how long each person had stayed in the office for. And if you were the top of the leaderboard, you'd get like a prize for that month. Where if you had filled in the most time of not leaving the fucking office, they give you like wine or something. Like, holy shit.
What a super healthy way to make great games.
Awful.
The one thing I think backs up your theory, Alanah, about kind of the future focus for them. From what I've seen, most of the stuff I've seen seems to be bugs related to streaming or like data streaming. So things not loading correctly, a weird low poly version of a character appearing.
Yeah, that I think is only on the older consoles. I've not had any of that. The most common
That's what I'm saying. Is
bug
that feels
I've
like
gotten
something
is-
that would be. Oh, sorry, go on.
the most common bug that I've gotten is, and it's still not frequent. I did have one quest that I had to reload because it thought that I hadn't done an objective that I had. But otherwise, it's just things floating. So occasionally, just like I had like a
lot of
traffic light
characters-
floating.
I've seen a lot of screenshots of characters loading in T-pose also.
I have not had any T poses,
Really?
not one, and I
When
want
I
to see
hear about
myself in T pose
loading-
so bad.
When I hear about loading issues, I do start to feel like maybe the plan was next gen, and like this has maybe been a result of that, because a lot of those kind of bugs would be less of a problem basically on like next gen hardware. So
Well, supposedly people playing on Stadia, because of the way that works, are having a really good time, and it's like very.
because that's PC they're playing. Presumably they're playing like basically.
They
a
are
PC
streaming
game.
from a PC, yeah. So that's a really interesting case of like, well, maybe console players should try it on Stadia if it's a game
Maybe
that you want to
Stadia
play.
was the winner all along.
My stance would be.
I've been playing it
don't
on
play
an
but-
Ouya, and it's fucking awesome.
I mean,
think
Austin, is
also-
it intolerably bad for you?
No, it's just noticeably not.
Polished.
It's just it feels weirdly last gen. Like the Last of Us Part 2 actively looks better at any given moment,
That's the thing that keeps getting me about so much of this. If you look at Red Dead Redemption 2,
and it's not ugly. It just feels like
if you put Cyberpunk next to Red Dead Redemption 2 on the same platform, you're like, look at Red Dead. Look at how
Yeah, it's
good that game
stunning,
open
yeah.
world. I didn't have shit floating, but it's just a completely different development cycle. Like it's the scale of it. Like it seems like from what I've seen of some people playing on Xbox, the screenshot IGN used of that character who's not loaded in, it feels like I am playing a completely different game, which sucks so bad. And that's why like I'm not gonna like rant about how good my experience is when reality is most people can't have my experience. You can't even get the newer consoles if you were planning to play it that way because they're all sold out. And even getting PC hardware, the 3080 and the 3090 are sold out too. It's just it's so restrictive for most people in a way that really, really sucks. But I
can
can't
really-
believe
The
Um,
ratio. I'd love to know what percentage of players are playing it on those last gen consoles.
So
versus
most
PC
pre-orders
and-
for this game were on PC,
Really?
which I thought was interesting. Yeah, majority of their pre-orders were for PC, and obviously
Hmm.
it's a PC-focused company in that they have GOG. That's where they want people to buy the thing. They make all the money from it, so of course they want people
They
to buy
make
it.
all the money from there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it a different version? This is a stupid question, but just so I understand, is it a different version if you bought it on Steam versus if you bought it on their store?
No, you just get some like
The
in-game
API
items if you played it on
changes. Yeah.
GOG, but that's it.
There'd be some API kind of hookups that would be different in the same way as like when we sell a game on like
What's
the Epic
API?
Store and Steam. API is application. I've never actually had to work out what the acronym is. It's the application protocol.
Should
so
I Google
don't
it?
know.
What does API stand
Do
for?
it, yeah, because
Is
that's
it, like,
really
give you
embarrassing.
different
It's a
skins
word.
and stuff. Is that kind of what it is?
No,
Like,
API. It's basically like the
Application
connective
programming
tissue between-
interface.
It's an interface. So it's if Steam's over here and my game's over here, it's the stuff that makes those two things talk together.
It
So,
says
like,
it's a computing
when
interface
you-
that defines interactions between multiple software intermediaries. It defines the kinds of calls or requests that can
Exactly.
be made, how to make them, the data formats that should be used, the conventions to follow.
you're so smart.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm telling
So
you that
in a
myself.
game,
I didn't read that.
that's amazing. This is off the top of your head. You put
I got
it so
you. I
eloquently
got
as
you.
well.
I've been
But
a game dev for a month, Mike. Watch yourself.
You just pick this
Know
shit
it
up.
all.
When you get an achievement, Troy, in a game, the game says Troy's got an achievement. It yells it at Steam or Xbox or whatever, and then they're listening and they say, "Oh, yep, you've got an achievement." That's an API call. That's the relationship between the two.
The big
So
It's the connective tissue.
Just like
So-
on PlayStation, if you get a trophy unlocked, that's API. That's the platform, the game telling the platform to give me.
So
this
the
one
PlayStation
thing.
speaks French, Steam speaks German, GOG speaks Russian, and I have to yell different things to each of those platforms to make them understand.
It's
what I'm
so
saying.
funny that you
genius.
got all of those wrong. Wouldn't it be that GOG speaks Polish,
I
that
knew you'd go there. I
PlayStation
knew you'd go there. I knew you'd go there. I
PlayStation
was
speaks
excited.
Japanese.
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 Yeah.
It was super interesting, but for all intents and purposes, I think it's the same version. But with PCs, obviously, again, it depends on what kind of hardware you have, and that's the weirdest thing. Is like I'm not going to recommend that anyone plays this game because all I can speak to is my own experience, and with this game, it's so subjective. Like, and I know how
Yikes.
subjective it is, and it's so unique. Like I can't think of another game launch that's been like this. And of course, the Cyberpunk launch was always going to be a big deal, and it's this gross thing that I think we've got in video game discourse at this point, where you can see from a mile off the culture wars coming. Like, we knew, even before it happened, that The Last of Us Part 2 was going to rip people apart. Before we had any leaks, it was like, people are going to take stances.
I remember when we were having private conversations, the conversation about
haven't played
Last of Us. I've not played it yet. No, I'm waiting. I'm waiting to read some reviews. I'm waiting for the PS5 remaster. I remember when we were having. I remember like private conversations before that game came out. The vibe among everyone was this one's going to be a trip. Like there's going to be a lot of conversation. There's going to be positive and negative. This is going to be a conversation starter. I think that was
Cyberpunk is the
feedback I heard
same.
from
Like, no
everyone.
matter what, if
Yeah,
it launched perfectly,
absolutely.
it was the same. And I feel like it's just become this thing where we attach ourselves. I don't know that we use the right phrase, but people attach themselves to properties, and they're either going to hate it or they're going to love it, and they know that before it even happens. And then the game comes out and has issues, and they're happy, or it comes out and it's people like it and they feel validated, and it's just weird, just like very strong identities tied to brands that just create this war that I think makes it so
brands have
hard
spent
to
a lot
discuss
of
video
money
games.
to do that.
That's why
true.
I
A lot of money
say.
That's
convincing
true.
us to think that way. You know?
That's why I say we go back and we let them have the moment where we stand off to the side as the industry and say, if it takes 5 minutes or 10 minutes, we're going to let them pick up the car. But to just pick it up for them or to apologize for it doesn't actually, it's not in service to the consumer. What we really, really want is the challenge. That's why we play games. We want a challenge. We don't want the boss to lay down. We want to beat it.
Sometimes
Well-
I want
Do
to take
that.
a photo of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Actually,
wanna
that's.
swim
I don't
with
think that's
it,
actually true. Yeah,
abzu. You can say that to Austin Wintory.
yeah,
You can say that like Austin's not in the room.
yeah.
In front of Austin?
Actually,
How dare
that's
you.
the
Of
whole.
all
That's
people, Austin.
my whole career was started by TGC's first game, Flow,
Yeah.
which was the number one inspiration for Flow. Was GTA's dynamic difficulty system, where if I just wanted to drive around and chill, the game would pose no challenge. It would get out of my way and let me drive. Genova was so inspired by that you didn't go and toggle difficulty settings, or you didn't enter into the arena to start combat. You just played the game, and if you pushed, it pushed back, and if you didn't push, it didn't push back, and with degrees of gradation in between. That to
Yeah.
him was really elegant design, and he said, "Can I make that, but in an emotionally relaxing way instead of in an antagonistic way?" Because he felt there were too few emotions being explored by games in general. And hence, he goes on to make Flower and Journey thereafter. And
Yeah.
Sky, but
I agree with that. Like I want a game to kind of grant me the kind of experience that I want, but to go.
but that's directly contradicting what you just said, isn't it?
No, I don't think it
Welcome to
directly
Because
the
does.
podcast.
Traveler in that moment wanted to have it handed to him, and you said no.
Right. I think the difference would be in if you don't want to play the game. You want to have your own experience. I want to use that. That's emergent gameplay to me. That is, I don't want to go off and do a quest right now. I just want to fish. That is using the platform and the tools that are available to me within the world to be able to kind of like curate my own bespoke experience. But if you're like, all right, I want to play the game, it's like, great, this is a boss battle. It's like, no, I just want to be able to just move past him and have the boss step to the side and let me advance from level 3 to level 4.
Assassin's Creed's letting people do that now in a way that I think
I was going to say, isn't that the entire selling point of Undertale also? Like,
yeah.
Like a mega massive giant hit on the basis that basically all that content is optional.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's maybe. I mean, who am I to say? It's all subjective taste. I don't think that Valhalla is an Assassin's Creed game at all. It's there's nothing about
It says it
that
on the box.
It does, doesn't it? But it's just it's a completely different experience. And there's a beautiful
it's a
thing.
departure, right?
Yeah.
But that's in a way that is what makes it AC at this point, because Black Flag had the same sort of critique / praise. You know, that people used the same sentence to praise it and to
Pirate
slam it.
game, not an Assassin's Creed game.
Yeah, but don't
I
just
love that
get
it's
rid of.
drifted. I love that movement. It's cool.
Yeah, but it's still it's dragging behind it the carcass of the dead ones before it. So
That's
it's
the
like,
weird part. Is like, why not just let it go?
Yeah, but why Final Fantasy it? You know what I mean? Just put
It's
it.
ironic given that
name
Assassin's
only.
Creed is a Prince of Persia game. Like that's the irony, right? Is it's a franchise built out of,
A failed
rebranding.
attempt to do a rebrand,
true,
right?
it's true.
So,
Yeah.
but to be able to say like, hey, you don't need the Animus anymore. We don't give a shit.
You still
And
have
How
it
dare
in
you.
Valhalla?
yes,
They 100% do, yeah.
Why?
why?
It's-
It
well,
If
doesn't-
you get rid of
funny-
the Animus, if you get rid of the Animus, you have to get rid of Danny Wallace, and Danny Wallace is core to the Assassin's Creed experience.
point.
I will die on
Yeah,
that.
good
hill.
point. Good point.
I will also say,
Can't be done.
in my experience on Syndicate, one of the funny sort of trivias about the music in that game is that I didn't write a single piece of music for the present day. 100% of the score is to be found in the core gameplay and the reason why was because there was virtually nothing. It's a bug. I wrote a lot of music actually. It just
It's a
didn't
bug,
play.
yeah. It's a hot state bug and
PC
nobody-
players didn't have to worry about it though.
Yeah, they told me, they said, there's so little of the present day story, and we're just going to do it all kind of cinema verite. Like that will be part of what distinguishes the modern day story, which is like 0.5% of the game. Is mostly cutscenes, honestly, and we didn't score them. So they recognized players love and we love making these period piece explorations of a time, a place, a city, that kind of thing. But there is still that very gentle tie, very loose single thread connecting to the present day story and the Animus and the freaking aliens or whatever. And it's so insane by this point. It's so their
I'm a
whole
sucker
Adam and
for that. I
Eve.
think I'm the
People who
only.
came before.
I think they do
The
it just for
golden
me. I'm
apples
the
and
only.
shit.
I'm the one fan of the modern day stuff in Assassin's Creed. I love it. Every single time I'm excited for when they first go to the modern day in Assassin's Creed. I've got to be the only one because I've never met anyone else who
I
likes
was
that at
really
all.
into it, and then it broke my
I was
heart.
super into it,
Yeah.
and
It
then
is
they
very silly
decided
now, yeah.
3
to have
broke
me.
me.
Yeah, well, 3 broke me as well, but it was also like even 2 was like, why am I fighting over the credit sequence at the end?
That was great.
No, it
Fighting the
wasn't.
Pope.
Great. With the cyber swords. Oh, I love it.
No,
I'm
that's
a sucker.
no. End of
Big
2
glowy sticks.
is you're fighting the modern day Templars, and the conceit. I
I don't
see
remember
the
the end of it.
conceit.
I know that you fight the Pope at the end of that game.
3.
No.
That's true. Is that 3?
You're thinking
I'm positive the end of 2 you fight the Pope. Yeah, as Ezio.
Yeah. Okay. 1 you fight. What's his name? Fights the bad main.
wouldn't
bad
make sense
guy.
for 3 anyway,
Yeah.
because isn't 3 like Revolutionary War? So
No, that was
Wait,
Still a
fight the Pope.
pope. There was still a pope.
still a pope.
You fly to
Yeah,
his.
2 you fight the Pope, but at the end, and you go back, and all of a sudden you're now playing as Desmond.
Yes.
And you
In-
realize,
in, like
oh,
an
I could
office
do
building or
all-
some shit?
No, it's like this big.
Maybe that's
like-
3.
You're doing all of the Assassin's
what I'm
Creed
talking
stuff, but
about?
as Desmond.
I don't remember.
You're doing all of it, but then all of a sudden it's like credits are rolling, and I'm like, I'm trying to like fight these dudes on a big wide shot. It's just weird. I was like, I can see that pitch I don't know, man.
I have trouble with Assassin's Creed because it was so close to being the best sci-fi trilogy story ever, and then they were like, "What if we annualized it?" And it just broke my heart because I loved what they had built. I loved all the people who came before stuff. And anyway, I have to get back to work. So I'm going to do that. Thank you everyone for watching. We are not going to have an episode next week because it's Christmas. We will be back, I guess, on the 1st.
Our Christmas gift to everyone is our absence.
Austin's wearing an elf hat. Oh, it's gone now. You had like a little.
It does
elf
look
hat
like that
above you.
sometimes,
It's
doesn't
nice.
Yeah.
It does.
So
Oh,
close,
it's
so
coming back.
close. But yeah,
the
thank
right
you
What I
to
like
for
is
Austin.
I like that the mic sort of
Who is
really-
he? It's like a filter.
it's really weird the way reality kind of.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying. You can
Good
tell I
content.
don't play with backgrounds very often.
I wanted to
It's
say
like
thank
Troy
you
on
everyone
Instagram
for
the other day.
a wonderful 2020 for
Yeah.
listening to the
Yeah, this has been
show.
great
I
fun.
hope that we've brought you entertainment this year in a year that has sucked pretty bad. Not that I think next year is immediately going to get better, but hopefully it does. Thank you for listening. Thank you for playing and also for watching. We'll see you guys next year.
Bye.
Bye.
That's clever. Oh,
Clever.
It wasn't that clever.
that is clever. It's pretty clever.
I liked it.